Hi Sassy fans, this is Dustin, personal concierge for Spirits and Spice, and today I'm actually making aloo gobi. That is potatoes and cauliflower, which is a variation of a curry recipe that we're using with a couple of our ingredients. A Tale of Two Cities curry, Indian goes on everything, and garlic and butter, extra virgin olive oil. I can't wait to get started. So instead of ghee, which is clarified butter, I'm going to use the garlic butter and extra virgin olive oil. I have a couple teaspoons of our Tale of Two Cities curry, and our India goes on everything. I've pre-made the other ingredients, but I wanted to show you guys a few things today. Number one, I'm going to vary the recipe a little bit. In our recipe, it calls for 4 cups of cauliflower and 1 potato. I feel like using more potato, so I'm going to do that today, and there's a couple keys to that. Couple other things I wanted to talk about today while we're doing this. Indian food is all about method. So oftentimes what you're doing is you're getting the aromatics and the spices, the onions and the ginger, which are going to go in here. It normally has like a tomato base. You let that come together a little bit. Then you add your vegetable ingredients. We're going to pressure cook it and let it come down a little bit. And it's going to create that curry. So some items that are fairly common are going to be garlic. This is something I wanted to talk about today. We can't talk about brands online, so I'm just going to call this one Schmirkland. So my nephew sort of turned me on to these guys right here, and this is a pre-minced garlic. There's so many advantages to using fresh garlic. So why use this stuff? Well, a couple different reasons. Number one, I think it's important that I like it when garlic is fresh as well, and I like chopping my own garlic, and honestly, its flavor is better. But truth be told, when I use this stuff, I end up using a lot more, and I end up using it as a seasoning all the time. So yes, I love to have fresh garlic on hand, but I don't always have it. That's number one. Number two, I have ginger and jalapeno. These are 2 items that I oftentimes just keep in the freezer. In fact, this one is just thawing out. Same with ginger. Ginger does not need, it's not going to keep in your refrigerator and it's going to go bad. I'm actually going to shred this with our little microplane, and I keep it in the freezer, pretty much have them on hand all the time. So enough of me blabbing. The first thing I'm going to do is get a couple tablespoons here into our Instant Pot. This is actually one of the Ninja Foodies that is an air fryer and Instant Pot, and I use this thing all the time. The 3 recipes we have online are going to be for this. So I don't even have to measure this. All I'm going to do is get a little bit into the pot. I think the recipe calls for a couple different tablespoons. What you're going to do is we're going to get, I'm going to chop this onion while this is heating up a little bit. You don't have to be super specific about this. If you're not an onion fan, and my wife is not a huge onion fan, you can chop it into smaller pieces. The onions will disappear in this. So by the way, I'm also aiming down so I don't end up cutting my fingers. I like smaller cuts of onions, but you can cut this to however you want. If you don't want the onions to disappear in your sauce, cut them a little bit larger. I'm going to save this for a stock bag. So I'm going to get the onions going in here. And again, drop this stuff into the Instant Pot low, so you're not splashing the oil all over your hands. If you try to drop it up to, oh look, here's a cat hair. I don't want that in our dish. So if you drop the product up too high, the oil can splash back on your hands. At the very minimum, you want to drop things away from you if you have to drop it from high. So I'm putting the onions in there. I'm going to grate a little bit of the ginger. In general, what I'm doing is just making sure that I'm getting about a teaspoon in here, maybe 2. I think the recipe calls for 1, but I just do it until it smells good and is to my taste. It's incredibly good for your digestion, ginger is, and it brightens a lot of food because some of these curries happen to be large dish. Now, this right here, I'm going to split. I'm going to take its seeds out because I'm sorry for anybody who's Indian who's watching. I'm taking these seeds out because that is spicy. In general, I'm not necessarily a fan of munching on these jalapenos either because we want the potato and the cauliflower to be the star of the show, but I do want a little bit of its flavor. So I'm going to put this in here, just split. You're gonna add the garlic. You always want to make sure when you add the garlic that you're not gonna burn it, because burned garlic is not very good. Stir this around a little bit. You can see that the onions right here are starting to turn a little bit translucent. This is the perfect temperature. I have it on 4. I don't have it on high and saute. Now, this is what's gonna make it smell like Indian food. If we were to do this Indian proper, we would have actually put whole spices in there. Because Spirits and Spice wants to make things convenient, we have all the spices we need, and these flavors are gonna just condense and go together. We have a number of different Indian style curries on here. Feel free to use them as you will. Now, while that's sauteing, I'm gonna put a little bit of salt. Why? I'm gonna draw out some of the liquid from the onions and let this marry a little bit and let those seasonings rehydrate in here while I cut everything to size. So I took cauliflower off its entire head, and I'm gonna cut these to the size that I think I'm gonna eat them. Important thing is doing the exact same thing with the potatoes. Almost always have a bowl here that I'm gonna throw these into. Might be a little large, we'll see. I'm just gonna cut these. Oh my gosh, it smells like an Indian food restaurant in here. By the way, anybody who says they don't like curry, they're wrong. Saying you don't like curry is saying you don't like sauce. India's had about 3,000 years with all the best spices in the world, and they have perfected the most amazing products in the world. People used to kill over spices. So curries don't have to be that yellow curry that you're thinking of necessarily. In fact, today ours is not going to be. Ours is going to be more of a tomato-based curry that's actually going to be a little bit red. But when you get the flavor of the potatoes and the cauliflower there, you'll never miss the meat in this dish, and it's incredibly healthy. The only oil we're adding in the entire thing is going to be that garlic and butter extra virgin olive oil. All right, so now I'm just going to move this out of the way. Now I already washed this potato, and I'm actually leaving the skin on. I'm leaving the skin on because I feel like if I'm going to eat the carbs that exist inside a potato, I should at least have the nutrients that are there as well. Now I'm going to chop these a little bit larger. In the Instant Pot, you just want to make sure that they're around the same size. And in the Instant Pot, I'm adding those right away so the potatoes have time to cook. They take longer than the cauliflower. But inside the Instant Pot, you're putting things at high pressure. So the smaller you make these pieces, the faster they will cook, and you may turn into mashed potatoes. So I'm adding the potatoes in a little bit. I'm gonna put my second one in here because I feel like more potatoes today. It's cold outside, it's winter time. I want to eat more. Notice that my potatoes aren't all exactly the same. Like this one, I'll live. All right, let's get these guys in. Now I'm going to add just a little bit more oil because I can tell with the amount of potatoes that I put in there that I'm going to need some more. Plus, honestly, we're making enough to feed an army because I, for some reason, felt like putting 2 potatoes in there instead of 1. Awesome. Now, while I'm doing this, I'm going to add some tomato sauce. It calls for a can, but I had used some tomato sauce in a previous recipe. No big deal. This isn't the star of the show. The star of the show are the potatoes and the cauliflower. Pro tip, if you want to get this out, add a little water. I'm going to shake it up, and this can actually make up for some of the tomato sauce that I am missing. See, this way we don't waste anything. That's going to go in. It smells so amazing in here. At some point, they're going to invent some sort of smell-o-vision. I know that that's been said before, but I really wish we could do it. I'm going to add a little bit more water. I'm going to stir these up. Now I'm going to add the cauliflower. The potatoes have had just a little bit of time to cook. Now the cauliflower. I'm going to get these all incorporated. So when you're working with an Instant Pot or you're working with a pressure cooker of sorts, you want to make sure that there's a little bit of liquid. Currently I have larger pieces of cauliflower, and I'm a little bit worried that if I pressure cook this, I wouldn't have enough liquid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add enough liquid in order to make it work. You could do this with additional tomato sauce. If you wanted to do a little infusion, you could do something chipotle. But either way, we want to make sure that we have enough to where when we pressure cook these guys, it's going to steam and cook these because we're only cooking them for just a couple minutes. Smelling amazing. When we close this up, we're going to put the pressure on low. I don't know if you guys can see that in there. I'm going to put the pressure on low, and I'm going to put it in for 2 minutes. I don't know. The cook instinct in me says to add a little bit more water. So cooking isn't like baking. Oftentimes you can, no, that sounds much better. Oftentimes in baking, you have to be really, really specific about the ingredients because there's a lot of science involved. I am definitely not a scientist. I might be a mad scientist when it comes to cooking, but I am not a scientist for baking. So what I'm going to do is add these until I like them here. I make sure all the potatoes underneath there and the cauliflower can just steam. So here's a little bonus ingredient today. Just adding a little bit of pepper. Excellent. So now I'm going to close this up. Oops, I almost put this lid on it. That's the air fryer. This is the lid. I'm going to select pressure. I'm going to take it to low, and I'm going to do it for 2 minutes. All right, guys, so the 3 minutes is up. I released the pressure valve. It's important, even though this smells super amazing, that you actually do not take the lid off until the pressure valve is released. I was making a green chili one time, and a friend thought it smelled so awesome that he went over there, and before I could stop him, he was trying to force off the lid, and I kid you not, green chili sprayed to the ceiling. So don't do that. It's not a bomb or anything like that. You don't have to worry about it. People freak out over pressure cookers, but it is under some pressure. I can't wait to take a look. Let's look. Oh my gosh, this smells amazing. Now, what you guys didn't see was that off camera, in my excitement for making this, I had forgotten to put in the salt. So I actually did that. And in the recipe, I told you guys that I was varying it a little bit. First of all, I'm going to remove this. Leslie does not like jalapeno. Taking that out, but that should give it a good pepper flavor. I added salt because I had actually forgotten about it. So the other thing that you'll find out is this cauliflower really broke down. You can do this as firm or as tender as you actually want it. If you guys will notice in my recipe also the garnish is for cilantro. That's really, really traditional. I absolutely detest cilantro. So we're going to garnish with green onions. At this time, by the way, you could also add a coconut milk if you wanted to thicken up this cream. Now, I was also dared, the recipe calls for lemon juice, but instead, I'm going to add calamansi. Never tried it. Calamansi is just, you really want acidity to cut some of the richness in that product. I can't wait to give this a try. All right. Potatoes look perfectly done. Cauliflower falling apart. Get a little bit of the sauce. Oh my gosh. So excited. If you wanted to do carb on carb action, you could actually serve this with rice too. Let's garnish with green onion instead of cilantro. There you have it. Aloo Gobi. Tale of Two Cities. Indian goes on everything. Garlic and butter, extra virgin olive oil from Spirits and Spice. Hey guys, I'm gonna eat, but stay classy and stay sassy.